I never thought my quiet morning would turn into a statewide chase. But when HOA Karen's son stole my Dodge Challenger, everything exploded. Sirens, helicopters, live TV coverage, and a kid who thought he could outrun the law. I didn't know it then, but this joyride would expose everything. I've always believed that a quiet neighborhood is one of life's underrated blessings. The kind of place where mornings feel calm, evenings feel peaceful, and the loudest thing on the block is a lawnmower on Saturdays. That's exactly why I chose the neighborhood I live in now. Wide, clean streets, neat lawns, mature trees that bent over the sidewalks like they were guarding the peace. And perched in my garage, my treasure, sat my Dodge Challenger, shining like a black mirror under the garage light. I had saved for years to buy that car. Not because I wanted to show off, but because it represented work, discipline, and every late night I'd spent grinding towards something bigger. The neighborhood loved the car too. At least, everyone except one person. Karen, the walking tornado of complaints. The queen of HOA. The lady who could turn a leaf on the sidewalk into a community violation. If something didn't fit her standards, her imaginary standards, the world had to hear about it. But back then, things were normal. Karen was more annoying than dangerous, and her son, Kyle, was nothing more than a teenage headache. You know the type. Always restless, always bored, always annoyed at everything. I'd catch him staring at my Challenger sometimes, especially when I polished it on weekends. He'd pretend he wasn't staring, but I knew. His eyes followed the car the way a kid follows a cake. Still, I paid him no mind. I was more interested in keeping my car running smoothly and my life running peacefully. Most mornings, I'd grab a coffee, lean on the driveway post, and enjoy the silence. The sun would reflect off the Challenger's hood just right, making the entire world look sharper, brighter. It was my routine, my moment, my calm. Little did I know, that same peace was exactly what would make the chaos feel so unreal when it finally hit point one morning. As I wiped down the driver's side door, Karen passed by with her dog, an old, overweight poodle that barely walked, but somehow got dragged along like a mop. Karen stopped, squinted at my car, and sucked her teeth. "That thing is so loud," she muttered, loud enough for me to hear. "It's not even turned on," I said without looking at her. "It will be," she snapped, then clicked her tongue and walked away. That was Karen's version of neighborly conversation. Deliver a complaint and escape before you could respond. I laughed it off. You had to. It was either laugh or let her make you lose your mind. But Kyle, he was different. He didn't complain. He studied, observed, memorized. Point one day, I caught him standing a little too close to the car. Not touching it yet, but close enough to leave his shadow on the door. "You like it?" I asked. He flinched like I'd caught him stealing. "I was just looking." "No problem," I said. "Just no touching." He nodded, then walked away with this strange, frustrated expression. At that moment, I told myself, he's just a kid. Ignore it. But there was something in the way he looked at the car, something hungry, something impatient. Still, life went on fine. I worked, I returned home, I maintained the car, and I stayed out of HOA drama as much as possible. The neighborhood kids rode their bikes. The elderly couple next door tended their garden, and for a moment, it really did feel like the perfect place to live. Then came the HOA parking complaint. Karen tried to claim that my Challenger was too aggressive looking and a disturbance to community harmony. I brushed her off, hard. I refused to move the car anywhere but my driveway and garage. That argument was the spark. Kyle had been watching, listening, absorbing every word. He saw his mom lose control, that he saw me stand my ground. And in his mind, that wasn't just a disagreement. That was a challenge, and challenges, well, Kyle loved those, especially the ones that involved horsepower, adrenaline, and consequences he didn't understand. This was the day my peaceful neighborhood began its slow descent into insanity. And my Challenger? It would soon become the center of the craziest, most unbelievable event I had ever lived through. A day so wild that even the police helicopter pilot said, "This kid must think he's in a movie." But that's getting ahead of the story, because before all the sirens, all the chaos, and all the cameras, it started right here, with a quiet street, a peaceful life, a car I loved, and a kid who wanted it just a little too much. That I should have trusted my instincts the moment Kyle's behavior shifted from annoying neighborhood kid to unofficial surveillance agent. Because the more I ignored him, the more interested he became. Not in me, not in my house, But in the Challenger, my Challenger.it started small. Too small to call out without sounding paranoid, that I'd step outside with a coffee at 8 a.m., and I'd catch him across the street, just standing there. Not walking, not talking, just staring in my direction with this blank, calculating look. The kind of stare that didn't match his age. The kind that came from a kid who had way too much time and way too little supervision. Karen wasn't any better. She stopped pretending to be passive-aggressive and went straight to aggressive point one afternoon. As I waxed the Challenger, she marched over like she'd been waiting for me all morning. "You really shouldn't keep that car outside," she said without even greeting me. "It's in my driveway," I replied. "It's distracting. The kids love fast cars." I laughed. "Kids love candy too. Should I file a complaint about the ice cream truck?" Her eyes narrowed. "This isn't funny. You're causing problems in the neighborhood." "How?" "By owning a car. By flaunting it." I stopped wiping the hood. "I worked hard for this. I'll park it where I want." Kyle appeared behind her like a shadow, hands in pockets, head tilted like he was measuring the car with his eyes. Karen noticed him and placed a protective arm out, like she didn't trust me around her son. "Come on, Kyle," she said. "We don't stare at things that don't belong to us." The irony almost made me choke. Kyle didn't move. His eyes locked onto the Challenger like it was whispering to him. Later that week, the weirdness escalated. I'd walk outside to take out the trash, and Kyle would be near my driveway. Always with an excuse. "Oh, I was just passing by. Just checking my phone. Just waiting for my mom. Just walking my dog." He didn't even have a dog. The kid was obsessed, and Karen either didn't notice or didn't care. She only cared about rules. Rules she bent for herself and weaponized against others. Then came the afternoon I caught Kyle circling the Challenger like a shark, that I stepped out quietly and watched from the porch. Kyle ran his finger just above the paint, close enough to make my blood pressure spike, but not close enough to leave a mark. His eyes traced the curves of the car, the hood scoop, the custom rims. He was memorizing it. And not just the car. I noticed him glance around at my driveway, my motion camera, my garage door keypad. Like he was studying patterns. That's when I approached him. "Need something?" He flinched, but didn't back away. "Just looking." "Looking at what?" "The car," he said flatly. "How fast does it go?" "Fast enough," I said. He smirked. "But it goes faster in the right hands." I stared at him. He stared right back. "What's that supposed to mean?" I asked. He shrugged. "You don't look like the type who drives it the way it's meant to be driven." I raised a brow. "And you do?" His smirk widened. "I've watched every chase video on YouTube. I know what I'm doing." I didn't say it out loud, but in my head. "No, kid. No, you don't." Karen's voice echoed from across the street. "Kyle, leave that man alone." Her tone wasn't angry at him. It was annoyed at me for existing. She stormed over like she was about to lead a protest. "Kyle, you know better than to bother people." "He's not bothering me," I said. "Oh, I'm sure he is," she snapped back. "Your car is too flashy. It encourages bad influences." I blinked. "So now my car is corrupting your son?" Her jaw clenched. "I'm warning you, that thing is troublesome." Then she grabbed Kyle's arm and pulled him away. Kyle looked back over his shoulder at the Challenger with a look that made me deeply uncomfortable, not a look that said, "One day to AT this point, I should have taken the hints." All of them. The staring, the questions, the attitude, the weird moments where Kyle seemed to appear out of nowhere whenever the Challenger was outside. But life doesn't give you dramatic music to warn you. There's no narrator saying, "Hey, this kid is about to ruin your entire week." Back then, it was just a strange feeling, like a pressure in the air that told me something was brewing, something dangerous. And Kyle, he wasn't just curious, he was planning. And I was too busy living my peaceful, normal life to see the storm coming. If only I knew how close his obsession was to becoming a full-blown disaster, a disaster that would start in my driveway and end with a helicopter swirling above a highway on live TV. The beginning of the real trouble didn't start with Kyle. It started with his mother, because while Kyle studied my Challenger like a hungry wolf, Karen approached it like an enemy she needed to destroy, not physically, but through paperwork, rules, and endless HOA nonsense. That woman could weaponize a PDF faster than most people could blink. It was a Saturday morning, warm, bright, peaceful. I had just finished polishing the Challenger. She looked perfect. The black paint was so clean it reflected the sky like a mirror. I was proud. I stepped back, admiring my work. That's when I heard the sound I dreaded most. The clack, clack, clack of Karen's plastic flip-flops. She rounded the corner carrying two items, a clipboard and a bad attitude. Neither was unusual. "Morning," I said, not looking up from the car. "Is it?" Her voice was sharp enough to cut steel that I didn't respond. She breathed out dramatically, as if my silence was a personal attack. Then she said, "Your car is causing complaints." I turned to her slowly. "From who?" "We don't disclose the identities of residents who file concerns." Translation: it was her. It was always her. "What's the complaint this time?" I asked. She lifted the clipboard like she was raising a sword. "This vehicle violates community aesthetics." I blinked. "My car violates what?" "Aesthetics," she snapped. "It clashes with neighborhood harmony. It's a parked car, Karen, not a nightclub." Her jaw tightened. "It's loud. It's off. It attracts attention. It's a Dodge Challenger," I said. "That's kind of the point." She huffed. "It also looks aggressive." I stared at her, confused. "Aggressive?" "Yes," she said. "It has this anger face. The headlights. The hood. The stripes." I literally laughed. I couldn't hold it. "It's not a living creature, Karen. It feels hostile," she insisted. "It's a car. And a very inappropriate one for this neighborhood." She crossed her arms like she was delivering a final verdict. "You need to start parking it inside your garage only. Never outside." There it was that I didn't even raise my voice. "No," she blinked rapidly. "What do you mean, no?" "I mean no. I'm not changing anything. You're required to follow HOA rules. These are not rules. You just made them up." She shoved the clipboard toward me. "I can add them. And I can ignore them," I said calmly. Her mouth opened like she was about to scream, but instead she gave this slow, menacing smile. The smile of someone who believed she still had the upper hand. "You think you can disrespect me?" she growled. "I think I can park my own car in my own driveway," I replied. Then, from behind her, Kyle appeared. He wasn't walking toward us. He wasn't even pretending to have a reason to be outside. He stood there like a soldier on standby, eyes locked on the Challenger, shoulders stiff, breathing slowly and controlled. Karen snapped her fingers at him. "Kyle, stop hovering." He didn't move. She rolled her eyes. "Teenagers," she muttered, then turned back to me. "This is your final warning." I almost laughed. Final warning for what? For choosing a vehicle that disrupts the visual balance of our neighborhood. I shook my head. "Have a nice day, Karen." "You won't be laughing soon," she hissed. She stormed away, dragging her son by the arm. But he kept looking back, that same hungry look. The look of someone imagining himself behind the wheel. I didn't think much of it. Just another Saturday of HOA nonsense. But that night, things escalated. At 10 p.m., I received an email. Subject line: "Parking violation, immediate action required." The message was 3 paragraphs of nonsense. Aggressive appearance. Audible intimidation. Disturbance to neighborhood tranquility. Excessive automotive aesthetic dominance. Who even writes like that? Only Karen. I didn't respond. I didn't even open the attachment. I went to sleep annoyed but unbothered. But the next morning, I walked outside and found a bright orange warning notice taped to my mailbox. Except it wasn't from the city. It wasn't from the police. It wasn't from any real authority. It was printed on Karen's home printer. In Comic Sans. With the HOA logo stretched so wide it was pixelated. I tore it off and crumpled it. That's when I looked up and saw Kyle standing at the end of the driveway. Hands in pockets. Watching. Studying. Memorizing. I finally spoke. "What are you looking at?" He shrugged. "Just thinking." "About what?" "How fast it goes." I stared at him. "You'll never find out." He just smiled. And for the first time, that smile scared me. Because behind it wasn't mischief. It was intent. The kind that said, "Watch me." I didn't know it yet, but this HOA argument was the match. And Kyle? He was gasoline. The spark he was waiting for, the moment he'd been planning for, was coming. Sooner than I'd ever imagined. There are moments in life when your stomach drops for no logical reason. When something tiny happens, but your instincts scream louder than your thoughts. That was exactly how I felt the first time Kyle actually touched my Challenger. It was a Thursday afternoon, warm and quiet. I had just come home from work and left the garage door open while unloading groceries. The Challenger sat in her spot, gleaming under the soft light. I walked inside for maybe 2 minutes, just long enough to put milk in the fridge. When I came back out, I froze. Kyle was standing right next to the Challenger. Not near it. Not around it. Right next to the driver's door, hand wrapped around the handle. He jerked back as soon as he saw me, but it was too late. What do you think you're doing? I said, voice calm but sharp. He stammered. I was just, seeing if it was locked. I stepped closer. Why would you need to check if my car is locked? He shrugged like it was the most normal thing in the world. I just wanted to make sure no one steals it. I stared at him. He stared back like his excuse made perfect sense. It's not your job to check anything, I said. He kicked a pebble with his shoe. It's just a cool car. I wanted to see inside. You don't touch someone's car without permission. His jaw clenched. He didn't apologize. He didn't back down. Instead, he said something that made my skin crawl. Relax. It's not like I can even get inside. Not yet. That's what he meant. I could feel it. But before I could respond, Karen's voice came tearing through the air like a broken alarm clock. Kyle, get away from that man's car. She stormed across the street, gripping her HOA binder like a weapon. What did he do? She demanded. I caught him trying the door handle, I said plainly. Karen immediately gasped, not at him, but at me. You're accusing my son of being a thief. No, I said. I'm accusing him of touching my property. Kyle folded his arms. I wasn't touching it. You literally had your hand on the handle, I replied. Karen snapped. Don't lie to us. My son doesn't lie. Oh, the irony. I pointed to the garage camera. If you want, we can check the footage together. Karen froze. Kyle swallowed hard. She quickly changed tactics. Well, even if he did touch it, why was it unlocked in the first place? You're supposed to keep things secure. This neighborhood is safe, and we'd like to keep it that way. I almost burst out laughing. Karen, your son is the one testing door handles. That's the safety problem. She gasped as if I'd slapped her. You're unbelievable, she screamed. You're turning into a nightmare neighbor. I leaned against the wall, calm. I'm the nightmare? Yes. With your loud, dangerous car and your accusations. You're creating an unsafe environment. Unsafe. I repeated. Karen, your son is the one who. Enough, she yelled. Let's go, Kyle. But Kyle didn't move. He glared at me. In the car. At the garage. His eyes scanned everything. The keypad, the layout, the camera angle, like he was mapping it all in his head. Karen yanked his arm, dragging him away, and he finally walked off, but not before giving the challenger one long, final look. A look that said, this isn't over. After they disappeared inside their house, I stood there for a few minutes, replaying what I saw. There was no mistaking it. That wasn't innocent curiosity. That was intent. Calculation. I grabbed my phone and reviewed the camera footage. There it was, clear as day. Kyle approaches the car, touching the handle. I tried it twice before I walked out. I saved the clip, not because I planned to use it, but because something deep down told me I might need it. And that night, I did something I never thought I needed to do in a quiet neighborhood. I bought a steering wheel lock, a secondary motion sensor, and a reinforced garage deadbolt. It felt paranoid, unnecessary, over the top. But looking back, it was the smartest decision I made. Because Kyle wasn't just curious anymore. He was escalating. And soon, he wouldn't be trying the handle. He'd be opening the door. And from there, starting the engine. Some mornings start quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that feels like the world is holding its breath. That's how the day began. The day everything fell apart. I remember waking up to a low, rumbling sound. At first, I thought it was a truck in the distance, or maybe thunder. But it wasn't the weather, and it wasn't a truck. It was an engine. My engine. A deep, unmistakable growl, the kind that shakes the air. I shot out of bed, heart pounding. My brain struggled to process what I was hearing. It was the Challenger. Running. Outside. I wasn't even out of my bedroom when a second sound tore through the quiet morning. Tires squealing. No. 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 This couldn't be happening. I sprinted to the front door barefoot, nearly slipping on the tile. I yanked it open so hard the hinges cracked. And then I saw it. My Challenger. My pride. My years of hard work. Speeding away from my driveway, the taillights glowing red as it jerked onto the street. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I didn't even see who was driving. Hey, I shouted, running outside like I could chase down a muscle car with bare feet and panic alone. Stop. The car shot down the road and disappeared around the corner. My stomach twisted, hands shaking, cold sweat on my neck. Who took it? How? How did they get inside? Where were my keys? Did someone break in? Did someone hack the garage? I forced myself to move, ran inside, grabbed my phone, and pulled up the security feed. That's when I saw it. Clear as day. Kyle. Sneaking across my driveway at 5:42 a.m. hood on. Face half covered. Moving like he'd rehearsed the whole thing. He walked straight to the garage keypad. Typed with confidence. Opened the door. My heart sank. The kid had learned my code. Probably watched me enough times to memorize it. Then came the part that shook me the most. He didn't hotwire anything. He didn't break a window. He unlocked the door with a key fob. My key fob. He must have taken it days ago when I was distracted, maybe when I left it on the counter after groceries. Maybe when Karen distracted me with some nonsense, and he slipped in. The footage didn't lie. Kyle sat in the driver's seat like he owned it. He revved the engine, hard, smiled, and peeled out of my driveway. I watched the footage 3 times, each time feeling more sick. Then I did what I never thought I'd have to do in this neighborhood. I called the police. 911. What's your emergency? My car's been stolen. A Dodge Challenger. Sir, is the suspect armed? He's a teenager. There was a pause on the other end. Then, with a suddenly serious tone. Sir, what model is Challenger? Hellcat. Another pause. Then the dispatcher said, Oh, officers are already reporting that vehicle downtown. Already reporting it? What? How? It just happened. The dispatcher sighed. Your car is fast, sir. Very fast. She transferred me to a local officer who sounded like he'd been on the job 20 years and seen everything. Is this the owner of the black Hellcat? He asked. Yes. Your vehicle just blew past 3 patrol units. He's heading toward the interstate. I felt my heart drop to the floor. He's going what? 70 over, the officer said calmly. We're coordinating with the highway patrol. A helicopter has been requested. A helicopter? For my car? For Kyle? My mind couldn't keep up with the reality I was hearing. I ran outside again, pacing, grabbing my hair. That's when Karen stormed out of her house, robe on, hair a mess, phone in hand. What did you do? She shrieked. What did I do? I yelled back. Your son stole my car. She turned pale, then red, then pale again. No, you're lying. Kyle would never. I shoved my phone at her with the security footage paused right on her son's face. She gasped so loud the whole street could hear it. No, that's not him. It is him. She dropped her phone. Her hands shook. Why did you leave it unlocked? Why did you tempt him? Why did you? He stole my car, Karen. She backed away like I had slapped her. Then she whispered the words that made me want to scream. He's just a kid. But the police didn't care if he was a kid. The helicopter didn't care. The 3 patrol units chasing him didn't care. And as the officer told me what came next, I felt the world tilt beneath me. Sir, be advised, your vehicle is currently being broadcast on live news.
This is a quiet
Live
neighborhood,
news.
not a
My car.
racetrack.
A teenager. A high-speed chase. And this was only the beginning. If you've never heard your own car being described by police radio chatter, it is one of the strangest, most terrifying experiences imaginable. It's like listening to a nightmare you can't wake up from. The moment the officer connected me to dispatch, everything moved at the speed of chaos. The suspect vehicle is southbound, weaving through traffic, requesting backup. Copy, Unit 14 in pursuit. Speed check, 120 miles per hour. That's the Hellcat? Affirmative. He's pushing it. My stomach flipped. My knees almost buckled. This wasn't some harmless joyride. Kyle was driving like he thought he was in a video game. I could hear the radios from multiple units overlapping, merging into this terrifying storm of updates, warnings, and urgency. Karen stood next to me, trembling. She wasn't yelling anymore. She wasn't blaming me or screaming at the sky. She was pale and scared. What if they heard him? She whispered. I stared at her, furious. Your son is driving a 700 horsepower car like a maniac. He could kill someone. She covered her mouth, tears welling. For the first time, her fear looked real, even if it was late. I turned my focus back to the radio. This is Air 1, we're en route. My heart froze. The helicopter was already on the way. Karen grabbed my arm. A helicopter? What? Because your son is driving like he's playing Grand Theft Auto. I yelled. Her jaw quivered. She backed up to her porch like the world was spinning. But things got even worse, much worse. The officer I was speaking to suddenly asked, Sir, does your car have any modifications that increase top speed? I swallowed hard. It has a tuning kit, and I upgraded the intake, and so it can outrun ground units. Yes, I admitted quietly. Karen gasped so loud it echoed. You made it dangerous? I snapped. I didn't make it anything. Your son stole it. The officer chimed back in. Sir, we need to know if your car has a tracker. 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 Thank God I had installed one. Yes, it's on the app. Open it. We need a location. My fingers shook as I opened the Hellcat security app. A blinking red dot pulsed on the map, moving fast, too fast. He's on Route 9, I said. Copy, the officer replied. Units are setting up spike strips. Karen screamed, No, you'll destroy the car. I whipped around. Karen, I don't care about the Sierra right now. She sobbed into her hands, and for a moment, even through my anger, I saw a terrified mother, not an HOA tyrant. But her son wasn't helping himself. Dispatch shouted. Be advised, suspect just blew through a red light, near collision with a semi. My legs gave out, and I leaned on the mailbox to keep from sliding onto the pavement. The officer continued. Air 1 is visual, suspect weaving, nearly sideswiped an SUV. The helicopter had arrived. In the distance, faint, but growing, I heard it. That deep, rhythmic thumping. The kind that vibrates the air. Karen heard it too. She looked up, trembling. Oh no, oh no. Her voice cracked. Meanwhile, my phone buzzed. Live alert. High-speed pursuit. Channel 7 News. I opened it. There it was. My car. My Hellcat. Screaming down the interstate at outrageous speed, with a police helicopter tracking above it. The news anchors spoke with adrenaline in their voices. We're watching a dangerous pursuit live. This is a black Dodge Challenger Hellcat reaching speeds over 130 miles per hour. The suspect appears to be a young male. That vehicle has exceptional acceleration. Officers are keeping their distance for safety. Karen grabbed the phone from my hand without asking. She stared at the screen. Her hands shook uncontrollably. That's Kyle, she whispered. That's my baby. In the footage, Kyle swerved between lanes like he had a death wish. Then he did something so reckless it made everyone watching gasp. He sped onto the shoulder, trying to pass traffic. The helicopter camera zoomed in, stabilizing the motion. Dispatch yelled into the radio. He's losing it, he's losing it. Then the officer talking to me spoke again. Sir, we're trying to end this as safely as possible. But your car is extremely powerful. He's inexperienced. That's a deadly combination. I felt sick. All I could think was, why did he do this? Why didn't I take the signs seriously? Why didn't I? A loud braking squeal came from the TV audio. Kyle cut across 3 lanes without signaling. A truck swerved to avoid him. Another patrol unit nearly clipped a barrier. Chaos. Pure chaos. Karen collapsed onto her lawn, sobbing uncontrollably. This is your fault, she screamed at the ground. You made it look cool. You left it outside. You. I stepped back, shaking with anger. I didn't force your son to steal a 700 horsepower car. She stopped yelling, stopped breathing. I just cried. And then, more radio chatter. He's exiting the freeway. Repeat, suspect exiting freeway. Air 1 visual, suspect heading into downtown. Units rerouting. Advise civilians to avoid the area. Downtown. Oh God. A Hellcat in downtown traffic was a recipe for disaster. Then came the worst moment yet. In the news footage, a pedestrian crosswalk appeared ahead. Kyle didn't slow down. He didn't brake. He didn't even signal. Stop. I yelled at the screen, uselessly. At the very last second, he swerved hard, nearly hitting a group of people. Karen screamed so loudly it startled the birds out of a nearby tree. The anchor's voice grew frantic. This is becoming extremely dangerous. Police are maintaining distance, letting the helicopter track him to reduce risk. But Kyle wasn't slowing down. If anything, he was accelerating. He was driving like he thought he was invincible, like nothing could touch him, like the world was one big racetrack, and he was the main character. But the real world doesn't work like that. And sooner or later, every chase ends, one way or another, because suddenly, this wasn't just a police chase. It was a spectacle, a live broadcast, a social media explosion, a breaking news event that hijacked every TV, phone, and timeline in the state. My phone vibrated nonstop, buzz after buzz after buzz, like it was panicking too. Friends, co-workers, neighbors, even people I hadn't spoken to in years. Bro, is this your car on the news? Turn on Channel 7 right now. Dude, your Hellcat is famous. Why is a helicopter chasing your Challenger? I couldn't keep up. I opened my group chat and saw nothing but memes. My CAR edited into video game covers. Kyle's blurred face photoshopped onto a NASCAR driver. Someone even animated the helicopter spotlight like it was a music video. But I didn't laugh. I couldn't. My hands were shaking too much. Karen was sitting on the curb, knees hugged to her chest, hair sticking to her face. She looked like someone who had just watched a tornado take everything she owned. Oh God, she whispered. They're going to hurt him. They're going to hurt him. I leaned down, voice tight. They're not trying to hurt him. They're trying to stop him before he kills someone. She didn't respond. She just cried quietly, her whole body trembling. Meanwhile, on the news broadcast, the helicopter camera zoomed in. Crystal clear, high definition. My Challenger cut through traffic like a missile. The announcers narrated every insane moment like it was a sports event. The suspect is now approaching the harbor bridge. Still reaching dangerous speeds. Police are keeping their distance. We have confirmation this is a stolen vehicle, actually registered to a local resident. And then, the worst moment for me. Authorities believe the suspect is a juvenile. Boom. That was it. The internet detonated. Within minutes, TikTok had clips. Twitter was a battlefield of opinions. Facebook moms wrote 3-paragraph essays about today's youth. But the loudest reactions came from live chat overlays on the news app. This kid is insane, loudly crying face, loudly crying face, loudly crying face. Bro's in a Hellcat. He ain't stopping, skull. He's gonna blow the engine. Why does he drive better than half the adults I know? Face with tears of joy. Helicopter said, I'm faster. Someone called his mom. Oh wait, lock him up. He's just a kid, chill. Imagine the dad when he sees the car. Bill loudly crying face. I shut off the comments. It just made everything worse. Then the news showed something I hadn't expected. A split screen. Left side, the chase. Right side, the community. And who was standing right there? Harold. My calm, old, lawn-mowing neighbor Harold. He was being interviewed live. The reporter held a mic to him. Harold scratched his beard. Well, he said, Karen's boy has always been trouble. Karen let out a strangled scream and covered her ears. Harold continued, totally unbothered. He's been obsessed with that Challenger since day one. I told everyone. I said, that kid's gonna do something stupid one day. And here we are. The reporter blinked, shocked. So this wasn't unexpected? Unexpected? Ma'am, I'm surprised it took him this long. Karen leapt to her feet. Stop talking about my son, she shrieked at the TV. Harold kept going. And that car? Beautiful machine. I'd steal it too if I were 20 years younger. The reporter widened her eyes like she didn't know if he was joking. Karen threw a small garden gnome at the TV. It bounced off harmlessly. Then came the moment I'll never forget. The helicopter camera zoomed directly into the driver's seat. Kyle's face, his real, unblurred face, appeared on live television. His mouth opened in a wild grin. Hands gripping the wheel. Wind blasting through the windows. Eyes wide with adrenaline. He wasn't scared. He wasn't panicking. He was enjoying it. Like it was fun. Like it was some thrill ride. Like it wasn't real life. Karen collapsed to her knees again. That's him, she whispered. My baby, my baby. I closed my eyes. Anger, fear, shock, all twisting together inside my chest. The news anchor spoke again. We're receiving confirmation that police may attempt a tactical maneuver if the suspect exits onto a safer roadway. Karen screamed. No, they can't hit him. They can't. I didn't yell back. Not this time. Because I wasn't thinking about Karen. Or the car. Or the humiliation of millions of people watching this. I was thinking about one thing. Kyle was living on borrowed time. At the speeds he was going, with the traffic he was weaving through, with the police forming a net around him. There were only 2 possible outcomes left. And one of them was tragic. I clenched my phone so hard my knuckles turned white. Please, I whispered. Just stop. Just stop the car, kid. But he didn't stop. He accelerated. And the helicopter pilot's voice said the words that made my chest tighten. He's running out of road. The chase was reaching its breaking point. And the next minutes would decide everything. The problem with momentum, whether emotional or physical, is that once it builds, stopping becomes nearly impossible. And Kyle, he wasn't slowing down. Not his speed. Not his adrenaline. Not his ego. The helicopter footage shook as it zoomed in, trying to keep up with the Hellcat roaring across the split-level bridge. The announcers sounded tense now. Not excited. Not entertained. This is officially life-threatening. The suspect is making extremely reckless maneuvers. Officers are preparing more drastic measures. Karen choked on her sobs, staring at the screen like she was watching her son's life drain in real time. "He's scared," she whispered. "No," I said quietly. "He's not. That's the problem." Because I knew that look on Kyle's face, the wild grin, the locked jaw. That wasn't fear. That was someone who had wanted attention his whole life, and finally had it. On the broadcast, the helicopter pilot gave a status update. Air 1 visual, suspect accelerating, approaching 140, repeat, 140 miles per hour. Karen shrieked. "He doesn't know how to drive that fast. That's exactly why he shouldn't be." Downtown traffic thickened as the morning commute began. Cars clogged intersections. People walked across crosswalks. Cyclists swerved around cars. Delivery trucks blocked lanes. But Kyle didn't slow down. The Hellcat took a hard right, so sharp the back and swung sideways. Tires screamed. Pedestrians screamed. The helicopter camera jerked to follow. The announcer's voice rose an octave. "The vehicle is drifting through a city turn. This is incredibly dangerous." A blue sedan tried to brake, but skidded. Kyle threaded the gap between it and a bus by inches. Inches. Karen grabbed her head like she couldn't believe what she was seeing. "Stop him," she sobbed. "Why aren't they stopping him?" "They can't pit maneuver in heavy traffic," I said. "They're waiting for a safer opening." She shook her head violently. "He's going to crash. He's going to die." Her terror was real now, raw, almost primitive. But even that wasn't enough to stop Kyle. The police chatter crackled louder. "Unit 15, suspect approaching the industrial area. Air 1, traffic thinning ahead." "Copy. Prepare for tactical options." Tactical option. Everyone knew what that meant. Karen didn't. "What does that mean?" she screamed. I closed my eyes. "They're thinking about spinning him out." She froze. No, they can't. He's a minor. They'll kill him." "They're not trying to kill him," I said. "They're trying to stop him before he kills someone else." She shook her head violently, sobbing harder. Then it got worse. Much worse. Kyle swerved off the main road, onto a narrow industrial lane between warehouses. The helicopter followed. The Hellcat tore through the empty stretch like a bullet. But at the end of that road sat a huge 18-wheeler reversing into a loading bay. Kyle either didn't see it or didn't care. The news anchor gasped. "He's going too fast to stop." Kyle jerked the steering wheel left. The car fishtailed violently. The tires skidded across the pavement, smoke exploding behind him. He barely missed the truck. Barely. If he had turned half a second later, this wouldn't have been a chase anymore. It would have been a fatality. Karen collapsed into a sitting position in the grass, shaking uncontrollably. I knelt down beside her. "He's alive," I said softly. "But this has to end." She nodded weakly, tears streaming down her face. The helicopter pilot sounded breathless now. Suspect exiting industrial zone. Approaching Highway 6. Officers forming a perimeter. A perimeter. This was the final stage. On the broadcast, we saw it clearly. Half a dozen police cars spread out, waiting for the opening. Kyle exited the narrow lane and merged onto the open stretch of highway. And that was it. The moment the police had been waiting for. One officer's voice cut through the radio. "Air 1, confirm, clear path ahead." "Clear. Go for it." Another voice. "Executing maneuver. Stand by." Karen clutched her chest. No, don't touch him." She reached out like she could physically stop the police through the screen. But Kyle wasn't thinking about survival. He floored it. The Hellcat surged forward, engine screaming like an animal unleashed. But the police car on his rear bumper was faster than he expected. Skilled. Experienced. The officer pulled alongside him. Inches away. Perfect alignment. Karen screamed. I held my breath. The officer nudged him. Once. Twice. The car jerked. Pit maneuver initiated. Kyle lost control. The Challenger spun sideways. The tires lost traction. Smoke exploded from the burning rubber. The world turned into a blur on the TV screen. The helicopter camera zoomed out to capture everything. The Hellcat spun. 1 full rotation. 2. 3. Then it slammed into the grassy median and stopped. Hard. Dust exploded around it. The helicopter spotlight centered on the wrecked car. The world went silent. Even Karen stopped breathing. And then, Kyle flung the door open and ran. He ran. Out of the wreck. Across the grass. like he still thought he could escape the consequences. Police officers sprinted after him. The helicopter pilot shouted, "We have foot pursuit." Karen screamed, "Kyle, stop! Stop running!" But he didn't. He tripped. Officers tackled him, pinned him to the ground, handcuffed him live on camera. The chase was over. The damage was not. Karen collapsed fully this time, face in her hands, sobbing so loudly the whole street could hear. And me? I didn't feel relieved. I didn't feel victorious. I felt grief. For the car. For the chaos. For the kid who threw his life into a blender for adrenaline. Because this was only the end of the chase. Not the end of the story. The fallout was just beginning. If the chase felt like a storm, the pit maneuver felt like a lightning strike. One moment, the Challenger was a roaring missile on the highway. The next, it was spinning, flipping direction, and losing every bit of control Kyle thought he had. The news helicopter's camera shook as the car rotated across the asphalt, smoke pouring from the tires. Even through the screen, you could feel the impact, like metal screaming against momentum. Karen was frozen. Her mouth opened. Her body is stiff, like someone had unplugged her from reality. "No, no," she whispered. "That's my baby, they hit my baby." Her hands trembled violently. But the officers didn't hesitate. They couldn't. Not with a 700 horsepower bullet tearing up the city. We watched the video as the Challenger tipped onto the grass shoulder and slammed down hard. The hood bent upward. Steam rose from the radiator. The front bumper cracked. A wheel bounced like a loose coin. Kyle staggered out of the driver's door, stumbling, dazed, panicked. He wasn't hurt badly, but he wasn't steady either. He took one look at the swarming police cars, then turned and sprinted. Barely 2 steps, before one officer tackled him full force, lifting him off the ground and slamming him onto the grass. Another officer rushed in, grabbing his wrists. A third kneeled on his legs to stop him kicking. The helicopter pilot's voice echoed through the broadcast. "Suspect in custody. Repeat, suspect is in custody." But Karen, she didn't hear that part. She only saw her son being pinned to the earth by 3 grown officers. She screamed, a sharp, primal sound that didn't even sound human. "Let him go. He's just a child. He's just a child." I flinched at the volume. Neighbors peeked through blinds. A few stepped outside. Everyone watched Karen crumble like glass hitting concrete. Her face twisted, pure devastation and rage clashing inside her. She tried to stand, but her legs buckled. She fell forward onto her hands, crying so hard she shook. "He's just a kid," she repeated, voice cracking. He didn't know. He didn't mean to, please. But there was nothing to say, nothing to do, nothing to soften what we were watching. Because reality doesn't stop to comfort anyone. On the broadcast, officers lifted Kyle from the ground. He was yelling now, trying to sound angry and tough, but his voice wavered with fear. "Get off me. I didn't do anything. Let go of me." They pulled his hands behind his back and locked the cuffs. 2 officers dragged him toward a cruiser. He kicked. He twisted. He screamed. But it didn't matter. He was caught. Karen grabbed my arm suddenly. An iron grip I wasn't ready for. "This is your fault." I jerked back. "What? You chased him. You let the police go after him. You gave him the tracker." "Karen, he stole my car. He's just a kid," she sobbed. "He's a good boy. He's just misunderstood. A good boy," I repeated in disbelief. He drove 140 miles per hour through downtown. Her face collapsed, shaking as she finally processed the truth. He just wanted to feel special," she whispered. "He just wanted attention." And then she broke completely. Her sobs shook her shoulders. Her hair plastered to her face. Her knees dug into the grass. Her scream echoed down the quiet neighborhood. Meanwhile, the ending played out on TV like a movie finale. Officers searched the Challenger. A tow truck backed up to lift it. Kyle sat in the back of a police car, his forehead resting against the window, eyes swollen, anger replaced by regret. The news anchor summarized what happened. The juvenile suspect led officers on a dangerous high-speed pursuit over multiple districts. He is now in custody. Charges are pending. That word, charges, hit Karen like a punch. She finally looked at me with swollen eyes. "Please," she begged. "Please tell them. Tell them he's a good kid. Tell them it was a mistake." I exhaled slowly. "Karen, it wasn't a mistake." She closed her eyes. A tear rolled down her cheek. She didn't wipe it. She didn't look away. She just cried. And for the first time since I'd moved into this neighborhood, I saw Karen not as an HOA tyrant, or a troublemaker, or a helicopter parent, but as a mother, watching her child fall apart. Still, I felt no guilt. My car was wrecked. My peace was shattered. My life was turned into a news event. Kyle did this. Her protection didn't save him. Her excuses didn't help him. Her denial didn't stop him. Reality caught him. Hard. And it wasn't finished yet. Because now came the real storm. The police report. The charges. The consequences. This was only the crash. The fallout would hit even harder. The sirens in the video faded. The dust around the crashed Challenger settled. The helicopter light dimmed. And for the first time since the chase started, everything went quiet. But not for long. Because Karen wasn't done. Not even close. She pushed herself off the ground like someone possessed, hair wild, eyes swollen, face streaked with tears and desperation. Her hands shook violently as she stared at the live broadcast of her son being dragged toward a patrol car. No. And no, they can't take him, she cried, stumbling down her driveway. She practically sprinted onto the lawn, waving her arms at no one, like she could reach through the TV screen. He's a minor. You can't arrest a minor, she screamed into the air. The neighbors started to gather. Some with coffee mugs. Some are still in pajamas. Some filming on their phones because, in this neighborhood, Karen's meltdown was almost as shocking as the chase itself. Karen, calm down, one neighbor said gently. She snapped her head toward him, eyes furious. Don't tell me to calm down. My son is being tackled on live television. Another neighbor muttered under their breath. Should have tackled him before he stole a car. Karen wheeled around, screeching, "What did you say?" But before she could start another verbal explosion, police cruisers turned onto our street. Not fast, not loud, just steady, purposeful. Karen gasped and ran toward them like she was about to block the entire lane. Two officers got out of the first car, hands raised defensively. "Ma'am, please stay back." "And no," she screamed. "Where's my son? Where are you taking him?" "Ma'am, step back." Karen ignored them and tried to push past. The officers gently but firmly held her in place. "He didn't do anything wrong," she wailed. "He was scared. He panicked. He evaded police across 3 districts," the officer said calmly. "He drove over 130 miles per hour. He endangered the public." Karen shook her head so violently her hair snapped back and forth. "No, don't say that. He's a good boy." The officer sighed, patient but firm. "Ma'am, please step back. You're interfering with an investigation." Karen screamed in frustration, a loud, raw, painful sound. Then she turned toward me, and her eyes, they were not the eyes of someone grieving. They were the eyes of someone looking for someone to blame. Me. She stormed toward me so fast the officers had to follow her. "This is your fault," she shouted. "You left that car out. You tempted him. You." I raised my hands. "Karen, stop." He made a choice. A very dangerous one. She lunged forward like she was about to grab me. The officers stepped between us immediately. "Ma'am, you need to stay where you are," one officer warned. Karen shrieked. "I want to see my son." Another cruiser arrived, and from inside, the officer stepped out holding a tablet. It showed the dashcam footage. He turned it toward Karen. "Ma'am, your son wasn't scared. He wasn't panicking. He was enjoying it." The footage showed Kyle laughing behind the wheel, grinning, revving the engine, sticking his hand out the window like he was filming a vlog. Karen's face was drained of all colors. "And no, that's not, he wouldn't." The officer lowered the tablet. "He did, ma'am." Karen staggered backward like she'd been physically hit. She fell to her knees, choking on sobs. The entire street went still, neighbors whispering behind hands, phones recording, eyes wide in shock. But Karen wasn't done. Her grief turned into rage again, uncontrolled, explosive. She jumped up and ran directly at the news van that had pulled onto the street. "Stop filming my family," she screamed as she slapped the camera lens. The cameraman flinched. "Ma'am, back off." She shoved him. Hard. The officer grabbed her arm. "Ma'am, that's enough." She spun around and screamed at him too. Then at me. Then at the neighbors. Then at the houses. "Anyone. Everyone. You're all against US," she cried. "You all hate US." The neighbors didn't argue. They didn't approach. They just stood there, stunned, watching a woman collapse under the weight of her own denial. Meanwhile, the officers kept their distance, letting her scream, letting her break, letting her process something she'd spent years pretending wasn't true. Kyle wasn't an angel. He wasn't a victim. He wasn't a misunderstood kid. He was reckless, entitled. And now, he was in handcuffs. And no HOA rule, no fake complaint, no screaming match could change that. Finally, after minutes of chaos, Karen's voice cracked into pieces. She dropped to her knees again, whispering, "What have I done? What have I done?" But the truth? She hadn't done anything wrong today. She'd done it years ago, by never telling her son no, by never teaching him responsibility, by blaming everyone but him for everything he caused. And this was where it led. To a crushed car, a terrified neighborhood, a viral news story, a teenager in the back of a police cruiser, and a mother collapsing under the consequences she never believed would come. The officers exchanged tired glances. "Ma'am," one said gently, "we'll update you once he's processed." She didn't respond. She didn't move. She just cried into her hands. And I stood there, breathing slowly, staring at the crumpled front end of my Hellcat on the screen. The chase was over, but the storm had only begun. The chase was over, Karen was broken, Kyle was in custody. But for me, the nightmare was just beginning. Because now, for the first time since this whole disaster started, I was forced to look at the reality I'd been trying not to think about during the chaos. My car, my Dodge Challenger Hellcat, my pride, my dream. It was destroyed. Not scratched. Not dented. Not scuffed. Destroyed. The news helicopter zoomed closer to the crash site, revealing the damage with brutal clarity. The hood was bent upward like a twisted jaw. The bumper hung half-detached. The grille was cracked. Steam hissed from the radiator. A front wheel angled in a direction shouldn't angle. The grass beneath the car was carved into deep scars from the spin. Even on a blurry screen, you could see it. The Hellcat would never drive the same again, if it ever drove at all. I felt my throat tighten. My chest felt heavy. It wasn't just a car. It was years of work. Late nights. Extra shifts. Paychecks saved dollar by dollar. It was my dream. And Kyle had taken it for a joyride and smashed it. Karen saw the same image. She turned to me slowly. Her voice was tiny, like it had shrunk. "We can fix it, right?" She tried to smile. "It's just a little damage." "A little," I whispered. She looked again at the TV. Her smile vanished. A tow truck backed up to the wrecked Hellcat. The metal hook clanged as it locked under the axle. The car lifted slowly, painfully, like watching an injured animal being dragged off the road. The camera followed the whole process. Every second hurts. The news announcer spoke in a somber tone. The vehicle sustained heavy structural damage during the pit maneuver and subsequent crash. Great. Exactly what I needed to hear. The tow truck driver got out. A big guy with a clipboard and a sympathetic face. He knew what he was towing. He knew exactly how much it was worth. In the live footage, he shook his head as he walked around the wreck. Then he said the words that punched me in the gut. "Man, that's totaled." Hearing it from him hurt more than seeing the damage. Karen gasped. "TTOD totaled? No, it can't be." But he said it again, even slower, as if it needed to hit twice. "It's done." A police car rolled up to our street. This time an officer stepped out specifically looking for me. He held a clipboard, a radio on his shoulder, and a camera clipped to his vest. "Sir, can we speak?" Karen jumped forward instantly. "No, you talk to me. I'm his mother." The officer raised his hand calmly. "Ma'am, I need to speak to the vehicle owner." Karen's face twisted. "I am a homeowner in this HOA, and—" "Ma'am," he interrupted firmly, "please step back." For once, she listened. Barely. She hovered behind me, breathing sharply, tears still falling. The officer turned his attention to me. "Sir, we've identified the driver as a juvenile. He's currently being transported to the station. We'll need a full statement from you." I nodded. "Anything you need." Karen snapped. "He doesn't need to give anything." My son was scared. This was entrapment. The officer ignored her. "We'll also need details about your vehicle." I took a slow breath. It's a 2021 Dodge Challenger Hellcat. Black. Supercharged V8. Custom rims. Modified exhaust. The officer checked his notes. Estimated value? I hesitated, swallowing hard. 72,000. Karen froze. Her eyes widened like she'd been slapped. "What? 72,000? The officer turned the page. "You also have upgraded tuning, correct?" "Yes." "Aftermarket modifications?" "Yes." Insurance premium adjustments? Yes. The officer wrote it all down. Karen stared at me in horror. You spent that much on a CAR? No, I said calmly. I spent that much over years. She swallowed. And Kyle destroyed it. The officer didn't soften his tone. Ma'am, your son caused property damage, reckless endangerment, evading police, and unlawful use of a motor vehicle. Karen's face twisted. But he's a minor. Minors can still commit felonies. That word, felonies, hit Karen like a wrecking ball. She swayed on her feet. And no. Please, there must be some kind of mistake. The officer shook his head. These charges are serious. And the cost of the damage alone. Well, your insurance will not cover theft by a household member. Karen's lips parted. What does that mean? It means, the officer said gently, that you, ma'am, are financially responsible for the damages. Karen stumbled back like she'd been shoved. She stared at the ground. Her voice trembled. How much exactly? The officer looked at his notes. Given early estimates, towing, impound, crash damage, legal fees, he paused. Probably between $45,000 and $60,000. Karen's knees buckled, and she dropped into the grass again. Oh no, oh my God. The neighbors exchanged shocked looks. I stood there silently. Not smug. Not happy. Not gloating. Just tired. Exhausted. Drained. Because this wasn't revenge. This wasn't karma. This wasn't satisfactory. This was the cost of someone else's entitlement. Karen sobbed into her hands. The officer finished writing. We'll need you at the station within the hour, he said. Bring your ID. He gave me a sympathetic nod before turning back to his cruiser. The street quieted. Karen looked at me with empty, broken eyes. What do I do now? I exhaled slowly. Karen, that's something you should have asked years ago. When the last police cruiser pulled away, the entire street felt like it had exhaled, except for Karen. She was frozen in the grass, knees bent, hands shaking, eyes unfocused. It was like her brain couldn't catch up with what had just happened. Her son was gone. My car was totaled. The world had literally watched her family implode. But after a long, eerie silence, Karen snapped out of shock. Slowly, dangerously, her head lifted, her eyes sharpened, her breathing steadied. It was the moment a drowning person realizes they're sinking and starts clawing at anything within reach. And that's exactly what she did. She reached for control, even if she had to twist reality to get it. And no, she suddenly yelled, springing to her feet. This isn't happening. I won't allow it. She staggered toward the sidewalk, pacing back and forth, muttering to herself. He's a minor. They can't charge him. This is exaggerated. They're lying. They're all lying. The neighbors watched from porches. Some filming, some whispering, some shaking their heads. Karen didn't care. She dialed her phone aggressively, fingers trembling. She put it on speaker so the whole neighborhood could hear. 911. What's your emergency? Karen shouted into the phone. You have to release my son. He didn't do anything. It wasn't his fault. The operator began calmly. Ma'am, this line is for emergencies. This is an emergency. Karen cried. You people wrongfully arrested a child. Ma'am, please contact your local station. Karen hung up. She spun toward me. You have to fix this. I blinked slowly. How? You need to call your insurance and drop the charges. I stared at her. There are no charges I placed, I said. Your son stole my car and led police on a citywide chase. The state is pressing charges, not me. Her face twisted in rage. You want him in jail. Admit it. I want accountability, I said quietly. Something he's never had. Karen trembled, furious, but her voice cracked. He's my son. And Karen, I said gently, that's exactly why he became this. Her eyes glistened, and for a moment, not long, but long enough, I saw real fear behind her anger. She lashed out again. You people don't understand. He's gifted. He has ADHD. He's emotional. He's special. Karen, a neighbor said softly. Every kid has challenges. That doesn't justify grand theft auto. Wrong thing to say? Karen whipped toward the neighbor like a tornado. Don't talk about my son. You don't know him. You don't know anything. The neighbor lifted their hands. I'm just saying. But Karen wasn't listening. She paced again, breathing hard, brainstorming new excuses. I can fix this. I can fix this. I just need to talk to the right person. She bolted toward her house and came back with a folder, overstuffed with HOA papers. She marched directly toward the officers still parked near the entrance of the neighborhood, guarding the scene. One officer stepped out, blocking her path. "Ma'am, please return to your property." Karen waved the papers aggressively. "I'm on the HOA board. I have authority here." The officer sighed. This was not his first Karen. "Ma'am, HOA rules have no bearing on state felonies." Karen blinked. It clearly hadn't occurred to her until now that her HOA folder, her holy book of neighborhood power, meant absolutely nothing. She tried anyway. But he didn't mean to steal the car. "He entered a locked vehicle without permission," the officer said. "He used it in the commission of multiple crimes." "He's a good boy." Karen cried again. "He was just playing." "You're overreacting." "Ma'am," another officer said firmly. "Your son could have killed someone." Karen froze. The officer continued. "No one is saying he's evil, but he made dangerous decisions, and now we all have to deal with the consequences." Karen's lips quivered. For the first time, she didn't argue. She didn't scream. She didn't deflect. She just stood there, breathing, shaking, braking. A black SUV pulled up. The HOA president stepped out, arms crossed, face tight. The neighbors murmured. Karen's face lit up desperately. Finally, someone who understands authority. The HOA president walked directly to her. "Karen," he said slowly, "I've received 37 complaints in the last hour about your son's behavior." Karen gasped. "You're taking their side." "Karen," he said, keeping his voice even, "your son turned our neighborhood into a national headline." "It wasn't him," she barked. "It was peer pressure, a misunderstanding. The media exaggerates." The cops escalated. The HOA president raised a hand. "Karen, stop." She stopped, not willingly, but because she had nothing left. No excuses, no arguments, no authority. The HOA president spoke softly. "We have to call an emergency meeting. The homeowners are demanding action." Karen's mouth fell open. "Action? Against me?" He nodded. "Pale. Seriously. Professional. The community wants your family temporarily suspended from HOA privileges and possibly removed from certain committees." Karen looked like she might faint. You can't do this," she whispered. The HOA president didn't soften. "We can, and we will. Your son wasn't the only one who crossed lines today." For the first time ever, Karen didn't scream. She slowly lowered herself to the curb, hands shaking, face empty. Her world was collapsing from every direction. Her son, the police, the neighbors, the HOA, her reputation, her control, and she had no idea how to stop it. I walked back to my house slowly. Every step felt heavy. As I reached my door, I heard Karen whisper brokenly behind me, "Please, I just want my baby back." Her voice cracked, and I didn't turn around. Because I couldn't fix this. No one could. This time, reality came down hard, and Karen could no longer yell her way out of it. The weeks that followed felt strangely quiet, like the neighborhood was exhaling after holding its breath too long. The sirens, the shouting, the accusations, they all belonged to a different time. A chapter that was closed, sealed, and filed away where it could no longer hurt anyone. What remained was the work of rebuilding, slow, steady, and strangely peaceful. The challenger sat first in the body shop, then in the paint booth, then finally under the soft glow of the detailing bay. Every day the shop sent photos to our inbox. The cracked windshield was replaced. The crushed fender was smoothed, welded, sealed. The hood resprayed in factory black, so deep it looked like an oil slick. When the final video arrived, the car rolled forward on fresh tires, chrome polished to a mirror finish. It didn't look repaired, it looked reborn. Insurance handled everything. We barely paid a dime. The irony was so thick you could carve it like a steak. The same guy who acted loudest, screamed the longest, and blamed everyone else had unintentionally paid for the repairs himself, through the consequences of his own actions. But we didn't celebrate. We didn't post. We didn't brag. We accepted the restored vehicle with quiet gratitude and drove home like nothing ever happened. On the first night back, I pulled the Challenger into the driveway and sat there for a moment, listening to the ticking of cooling metal. The street was calm. Porch lights glowed like fireflies. Somewhere down the block, a lawn sprinkler whispered across the grass. It was the kind of silence you don't notice until life has taught you how fragile peace really is. Inside, the family waited. Dana opened the front door and smiled, one eyebrow lifted in mock approval. "You brought her home," she said. "Good as new. Better than new," I answered. Tiffany darted around me to inspect the paint, filming on her phone as she circled the car like a museum curator. Grant leaned against the railing, arms folded, a quiet grin pulling at his face. "It's crazy," he murmured. "All that trouble, over something so small." I nodded. Entitlement makes small problems feel like earthquakes. He blinked at me. "That sounds like something Mom would say." "Don't tell her," I joked. "I'm trying to protect my reputation." We laughed, but beneath it was an aftertaste of truth. Some people don't know how to live unless they're towering over someone else. They mistake loudness for strength, threats for power. They walk through the world like everyone owes them something, and then they're shocked when reality finally presents the bill. Life doesn't always hand out justice with a dramatic soundtrack. More often, it uses paperwork, policies, clauses, a boring email that says approved. And sometimes, the loudest people learn the hardest lessons not by punishment, but by consequence. The neighborhood eventually learned how to move on. The HOA became a genuine community group. Meetings were open, conversations polite, decisions transparent. Fences became less about control and more about cooperation. Kids rode bikes. People stopped clutching their letters in fear. For the first time in months, people waved without checking who might see them. I found myself walking more. Past the cul-de-sac, past the new garden someone planted where the old complaint desk used to stand. The birds didn't seem to care about bylaws. The breeze didn't ask for approval. The sun rose and set whether anyone liked it or not. Nature had no interest in drama. It just kept moving. One evening, as I returned from one of those walks, I saw the reflection of the Challenger in the window. Perfect, untouched, quiet. A reminder that some battles aren't meant to be won loudly. Some victories are the kind you don't post online. They simply settle into your life, like the hum of an engine you trust. At dinner, Tiffany asked, "Do you ever wish we'd handled things differently? Maybe fought harder? Or called someone out publicly?" I thought about it. The shouting, the threats, the chaos, the way people hovered at the edges, waiting for spectacle. Then I shook my head. "No," I said. "When a storm passes, you don't chase the thunder. You just fix the roof and move on." Dana raised her glass. "Moving on." We clinked our cups softly, no speeches, no drama. Just a family reclaiming their peace one quiet evening at a time. Outside, the world kept spinning, bigger, louder, faster, but inside that little home, the lesson was simple. Sometimes, the loudest people learn the hardest lessons.